Palestinian conflict has been one of the unending conflicts since the First World War, and really people have suffered tremendously. India has tried, so many other non aligned movements, so many other groups of countries have tried from time to time.
To me, it seems that this is opening the door to hope. And I think we need to remember that we're at the very end of the runway here in terms of pivoting from this horrible war to potential peace among these two entities.
Let's introduce our panel of experts. Joining me on Global Pulse tonight is Ambassador Shashank. He's former Foreign Secretary of India. He joins us live from New York. We also have with us Roshni Goswami, human rights activist and an independent researcher, joining us from New Delhi. From Israel, we have with us Nitzana Darshan Leitner. She's the president of Shirat Hadin Law Center. And completing the panel tonight is Daniel Wagner. He's the CEO of Country Risk Solutions and managing director of Multilateral Accountability Associates. He joins us live from Oregon in the US tonight. A very warm welcome to all my guests. Ambassador Shashank, let me begin with you. So before we get into the unresolved issues, which some also describe as the thorny issues, your thoughts first, sir, on the overall big development, Israel and Hamas agreeing, at least in part, to the peace deal, or let's say the first phase of the peace deal, whereby we are told that all the hostages are likely to be released soon in exchange for several Palestinian prisoners. It certainly is a promising start.
I agree with you, Neha, that uh, Palestinian conflict has been one of the unending conflicts since the First World War, and really people have suffered tremendously. India has tried, so many other non aligned movements, so many other groups of countries have tried from time to time. I think it's the first time we are finding that a very large number of Islamic countries who were earlier sometimes kept out of the peace process completely, and so they were able to help out in the destabilizing the process by funding one or the other organization in the past. I think this time we are finding that President Trump, whatever be the reason, he is extremely keen to arrive at a kind of a longer term peace in Gaza, and he has been able to persuade both Hamas and Israel. And now, as I heard him say, that he has also confirmed that all the Islamic countries, whether rich or poor, are associated with this peace plan. I think that is a very positive outcome, and I hope that we continue to work in that direction. And the kind of expectation which is there, the release of hostages, the ceasefire, and then further steps to be taken to bring about a longer term peace and reconstruction work, etc., in Gaza and the Palestinian areas, which is very important. In the past, always the ceasefire itself was difficult, but the subsequent steps were even more difficult. They were never arrived at. And that was one of the failures of the United Nations system. I think this time it is the individual countries which have come together, and so we should welcome this initiative which has been taken by President Trump.
I think we can all agree that this is a very welcome development that has brought huge relief and hope, not just to the affected parties, but to the entire international community, because we were all hoping and praying that, this war would come to an end. Just too many people have died in the last 2 years. All right, Daniel Wagner, let me come to you at this point. I don't know if Donald Trump is going to win the Nobel Peace Prize, one that he so desperately seeks. There's going to be an announcement of the winner tomorrow. And I think for the first time in a very long time, the entire world would want to know and will wait with bated breath to find out who the winner is. But credit where credit is due, it seemed like an intractable and complex solution and a forever war, as it were. Now, with 2 years of the conflict, having just reached its 2-year anniversary a couple of days ago, Do you believe that there is finally light at the end of the tunnel? How big and significant a development do you think this is?
To me, it seems that this is opening the door to hope. And I think we need to remember that we're at the very end of the runway here in terms of pivoting from this horrible war to potential peace among these two entities. That all said, there is a long way to go. And we should, I think, keep in perspective that while this is hopeful and while this is giving us reason for some optimism, there are many, many unresolved issues. For example, what happens when there's another attack by Hamas in Israel, or what happens if there's a breach of the ceasefire? All of these types of details have yet to be either negotiated or revealed to the general public. And that all said, I do think that there's reason to believe that both parties have conceded enough on some very critical and important points that there is room for further negotiation and room for further progress. Now, that all said, I think without the intervention of President Trump, we would not be at this moment. I think everybody understands that. Interesting to me also is to note that the UN was completely absent from this process, and that many of the other countries in the Middle East, which might have played a useful role, are also absent. So kudos to, Turkey and Egypt and Qatar for their involvement in this process. But my question is, where were the other countries that might have lent a hand here?
All right, interesting. Well, there is no doubt that there were multiple players involved in all of this, especially from the Middle Eastern region. But at this point in time, Donald Trump would certainly want to believe that he is the man of the moment. Let me bring in our Israeli guest, Nitzana Darshan Leitner. Thanks for joining us. This is really the first time in 2 years that we have found a reason to be optimistic about the ongoing situation in Gaza. Therefore, I want to first ask you about the positive aspect of it all. How big a breakthrough is this in your view? The fact that the remaining Israeli hostages being held captive in Gaza are going to return home. The US says this could happen as early as Monday. And of course, there will be, release of Palestinian prisoners as well. The fact that Israel and Hamas have finally managed to see eye to eye on even some aspects of a peace proposal seems to be reason enough for the world to celebrate right now.
Pleasure to be on your show. Thank you for having me. There is no person in Israel that is not happy for the coming back and returning of the hostages, remaining hostages. Everybody thrilled, everybody was waiting for them 2 years to come in. Having said that, there is no person in Israel that has no doubts that this deal will accomplish the other two goals of the war, which were declared by the Israeli government, which are eliminating Hamas as a military organization and not serve as a threat to the safety of the citizens in Israel. Because the deal, after releasing the prisoners, supposed to have Hamas disarm itself, supposed to let Hamas flee the Gaza Strip, I don't believe, and many others, that Hamas will turn in its weapon and leave willingly the Gaza Strip. We don't either believe that there will be a foreign force, military or elsewhere, that will step into the shoes of the IDF and make sure Hamas is eliminated. So the plan as a plan is a good one as long as it can be accomplished. And our prayers this day, after receiving the hostages back home, is that we, with the help of the United States and the help and the support of the Arab nations that supported this deal, will make sure Hamas is no longer in the Gaza Strip, that all the terrorists leave the strip, that there is no weapon, there is no threat And from here, we can just thrive to a better future. I'm not talking about peace. Peace is a very long term and long run expression. The Israelis, what they want right now is to live safely on the southern border, is to make sure October 7th will never happen again. And to bring this into reality is have to have all the forces united in order to push this horrible terror organization, this bloodthirsty organization, these rapists, these people that came and butchered our children, our babies, our women, push them away from the Gaza Strip and build a different society over there that will be able to live side by side with Israel.
Okay, you know, we will discuss in greater detail what the future of Gaza looks like now and, where Hamas goes from here. Is it going to agree to some of those conditions that have been laid down by Trump and Israel? We'll get to that in a moment. But before that, Roshni Goswami, come in here. You and I have in the past discussed on this show the absolutely horrific and unprecedented humanitarian catastrophe that we've witnessed in Gaza over the last 2 years. The United Nations has called it a genocide, and they've also officially declared a famine in the Gaza enclave. As somebody who obviously feels very strongly about what's happened to the Palestinians in Gaza and about human rights in general, are you at least relieved today that, maybe there is light at the end of the tunnel? That maybe we are going to see a cessation of hostilities, that we will see a ceasefire coming into effect in the next couple of days. And along with the release of the Israeli hostages, we're going to see the war torn people of Gaza finally get some relief and maybe, just maybe, a chance to rebuild their lives.
Thank you. Thank you, Neha. Let me start on a positive note first. As everybody says, I welcome, on behalf of the people of Palestine and Gaza, particularly, this is indeed a moment of respite for the people who are starving, this kind of man made starvation that is going on in Gaza. So, this will, at least with the humanitarian aid being allowed to come in, there is a ray of hope on that front. On the other, the release of hostages. We have hostages on both sides. The Palestinians are not prisoners, they are hostages. So the release of hostages, both the Israeli hostages and the Palestinian, there are, of course, far more Palestinian hostages. There are over 15,000, of which a large number are children. So we will get some respite of some of them being released. So that is the welcome, the positive part of this. In terms of whether this peace, so-called peace or ceasefire, will uh, be sustained, I have my serious doubts. Uh, the US has vetoed every peace proposal which was there at the UN, every one of them. So we have one country which has vetoed everything, the country which has provided all the arms throughout this genocide. This is not a war, this is a genocide. It has provided all the arms. So that country is coming in with a peace plan with the other country who is the genocider. And the third, they are bringing in a Tony Blair, who is better known as the butcher of Iraq, to administer later on. So I have my serious doubts where the second phase of the peace plan, so called, is really going to be.